Hello and welcome to this tutorial. What we're going to be looking at in this case is not making a mask as such as we've been looking at selections at masks. We're just going to be looking at selecting an area of the image and applying some effects to it. And when I took this picture, it's a really nice picture. I really like this picture, but when I looked at it, if you look at the top of the image and we see these parts of the actual flower there, you can see that if you look at the bottom, it looks a bit like a reflection, although it's not. It's actually a completely different flower underneath, but it looks a bit like a reflection. When I looked at this, straight away that hit me, and I thought it would be nice to actually do something creative with this and actually make it look like a bit like a pond underneath where we got the reflection in some water. So what we're going to do is we're going to apply an effect that makes it look like that. So we're going to apply some colour to this, make it a bit blue so it looks like water, put some ripples in the water and whatever. And we're going to be using a tool that you haven't used yet, and this is called the Curvature Pen Tool. Now, the pen tool scares a lot of people, and it is a really tricky tool, but the Curvature Pen Tool is a new tool in Photoshop. It's only just recently came into effect, and it really does make it easy to use. So I'm not going to talk about the old techniques of using the pen tool. I'm going to talk about just the Curvature Pen Tool. So on the pen tools, if we click and we look at the different ones we've got, you will see Curvature Pen Tool. So that is the one we select. And I'm not going to make a selection as such. I'm just going to play with this to start with. The B, for instance, I wouldn't use the Curvature Pen Tool for that, but let's just say I wanted to select part of that. I click once and I move and I go to another position and I click, and then I could go somewhere else and I click. Okay, now you can see that it's not selecting the wing, but I can click and add other points. You can see that point that's moving around there, and if I click, I can bring that up to there. And if I click here, I can bring that up to there. And you can see that the curves are automatically appearing. And I can keep clicking and adding points. And I can click, keep doing this sort of thing. And that will give me a nice selection. Now, obviously, the wing isn't a great thing to actually start with. There's also other things. If we look carefully at this part, you can see that we've got a curve there, and really that would be more straight. And if we go back to the previous point, so I've got the curve there, I want to make that straight. If I go to this point and I double click that, sorry, I've got the wrong one, it's this one. So I'm going to go to both and double click them, and you can see that it makes that straight. Yeah, I've done it on this one, it's made it straight also, but I can still edit those. I can click and reposition and make it a curve again. Double clicking that point will make that one straight, that one's still curved. If I double click that one, that makes that one straight. So I can change curves to straight lines. That's really handy to know and easy to do. But just double click on this one, for instance. That's made that straighter, and I can come down and edit it at any time. So a really very cool tool. You can see that I'm getting all these lines. Every time I make a selection, the lines remain there for a while. But we haven't saved these selections. And this is when we need to select paths. When we create these lines to make a selection, we need to make sure that on the options bar that we have got path selected. You can see you've got path and shape. Path needs to be selection. The mode or the make needs to be selection. Okay, so we've got that. So that's really important. Change that to path. To see the paths, we go to Window and make sure you've got path selected there, and then it'll appear on your right hand side or left hand side depending on how you've got your machine set up. But you can see now these white areas that are selecting this path. Now I can delete that. I'm going to press delete on that. So if you want to get rid of those, you can press delete. They wouldn't print out or anything. They wouldn't actually be on the image. They are just, a path is invisible as such. You get the blue lines basically so you can see what you're doing. Okay, so we're going to create a new path. Let me take that off now. When I start drawing, it will create a new path automatically. I've got path selected up there. And looking at the image, what I want to do, I want to select this bottom part of this flower to make it look like it's water down this area, and this is overlapping the water. So you'll see when I make the selection, I'm going to click here and I'm going to go, let's drag that up a little bit. Okay, I'm going to go across here. So I'm just clicking on the edge of where I would imagine the water to actually be. And using the techniques that I've just shown you, you can click, move these around. I'm going to come around here. I'm going to go around the foot there. Basically, I'll work really quick. I'm just going to keep going. It's the best way to work with this tool. Work fairly quick, go around the edge, and then come back and just edit what you need to. And I'm going to come outside the image, back to here, and then I'm just going to have a look and just, I'm not going to be too particular in this case. Obviously you would, but that's okay. That's looking okay. I might just bring that out a little bit there. There you go. So we got that selection. Now we need to view the paths again. Now, again, you can go to window paths, but I've actually got the paths on my palettes here. So if I click on paths there, I can see I've got a work path. And I need to save this. So to save it, I need to double click on there and it'll say save path. And I'll give it a name. So I'll just call it water. Click on OK. And now I need to go to my layers. So I'm going to click on the layers there. I'm going to duplicate this layer, something that I always do, not for any particular reason, but I want to protect my image, so I'm working above it. And then I'm going to create a new blank layer by clicking here, create new layer button on the layers palette. And I'm actually going to double click this and call it water just to make it nice and easy so we know what's on there. Now, if I go back, so I'm on this layer now, that's important, so it's selected and that's the one I'm working on. Now if I go back to my paths, and I'm going to Command or Alt click, depending on whether you're using PC or Mac, and you can see that when I hold down the Command key on my Mac, or Alt if you've got if it's Alt or Control actually on the PC, try each one, and then you get your selection. Okay, so that is how you can use the path. You can always go back to this path and get that selection just by simply clicking that. So that's a nice way to work. So I'll go back to my layers. I'm on the water layer. Now what I'm going to do is to get some watercolours. So obviously I want blue. So I'll go into my foreground colour picker and I'm going to select a darker blue and then go to this one. Now I want a lighter version of that blue I've just selected, and a way of doing that is we got the colour picker box there. If I take my mouse over, you can see you get like a sample tool come up, and if I anywhere I click on here, it will change the colour. If I click there, it will change it to that colour. If I click there, it will change it to that colour. If I even come over to the box or I click on this colour there, that gives me exactly the same blue for the background colour. Okay, but what I want to do is to make it lighter, so I'm going to drag it to the left so I've got a very light blue. There we go. So you can see now I've got the foreground and the background. So the colour picker allows you to select any area the screen really, and give you a colour from the area of the screen. You could even get a different picture and take a sample from that. Okay, so this is the colour for my water. So I want to now fill this area in with the colours, and for that I'm going to use a tool, the gradient tool. So select your gradient tool, and we get different gradients from the top of the screen there. So we just have a look how these work. A gradient fill. Now you can see I've got blue to white, so you can select from here the different ones. You need this foreground to background, which is the first box. Make sure that's the one that's selected. And when you hold down the mouse on the screen, it draws from blue to the lighter colour, from the dark blue to the light colour, so foreground to background. So if I'd done it this way, I'd get the opposite. If I come to the middle of the image and drag down, I'll get that. So I want something, something like that. Okay, doesn't got to be perfect. And I also used a linear gradient. You could use linear, or you maybe want to use radial. That gives you a different effect. It gives you that type of effect like that. I think I'll actually stick to the first one, so the linear gradient. And just drag up like that. Okay, so we get something like that. Now what I want to do, I should probably get that a bit darker. There we go. You can play to your heart's content till you get what you want. That's looking nice. Okay, so I'm going to go for that. Now what we do is change that layer mode. I'll probably use multiply. Let's have a look at multiply. You can see that gives it that nice effect where it's the water's transparent, but it's just colouring it in with that little bit of blue and the darker blues on the outside. Okay. So select, deselect now. We can take that off. We've done with that. And you see now we've got this nice water effect underneath. It's now looking like there's actually water there. And just to make this, to emphasize this, what I'm going to do with this is to apply an effect to the image below. So I'm going to take this water off for the time being. I've clicked on the eye there, hidden the layer, and I'm going to click on the one below. And I'm going to use the elliptical marquee tool, which is up here. See the different ones. So select the elliptical one. I'm going to draw a selection, something like that. What I'm looking at is putting pond ripples into this. So you want to think about, you know, the angle to produce that. So I'll just click and draw again. So you don't want something like that. It looks a bit unreal. I want something to go sort of like that. Okay, so we're looking at this area. And then I'm going to go to Filter, Distort, Zigzag. Now when this comes up, you don't actually get a preview on there, which is unfortunate. I wish Photoshop done this, but you don't see the preview on the picture. You get the preview at the top there. And there is a style, and we want the style. So probably when you go on, it'll be something like this. And I want the style to be pond ripples. And I'll drag the amount up. Let's just make that a little bit smaller. So we see the effect. And the ridges, you can say how many ridges you want. I want the effect to be quite deep on that. So you can see, this is the effect that I'm getting. You can see the, okay. So something like that. Click on OK. And there you can see it's giving me that pond ripple effect, which is really nice. Now it depends where you do this on an image. Obviously if you've got an image and the colour is basically all the same, let's say you've got try to do it on a totally blue area with no variation of colour in there, you wouldn't notice the effect so much. So it's nice if you've got variants of different colour in there because the ripples show up a little bit better. Now what I'm going to do, if we look at the options bar, at the moment I'm on new selection, and that means I can, when I put my mouse inside this selection, you can see you get this little square, and that allows me to move the selection. So I'm going to come down to here, and I'm just going to repeat that. Now a quick way to repeat that is if I just go to filter zigzag, right up from the top there, you will repeat the last settings. Now, and I might just do one more. Drag it again, filter zigzag, and there we go. So select, deselect. So if I show you the image underneath, that's the effect that it's put on. Now let's put our water back on, so we click the eye there, and we've got our water effect. Now on the water you can change the opacity of the layer if you want, just to lessen the brightness of the colour. And I think that's looking a little more realistic there, just taking it down that little bit. So you can see we've learned to use a new selection tool. We've learned to put some effects on there. And this is the best way to learn Photoshop, I think. It's not reading a book, it's actually getting a picture and applying a technique to it. Get a picture of your own, try using those effects. It doesn't matter too much practice. It doesn't matter if the picture isn't perfect to do this type of thing on. You can basically take a picture of anything and try using the effects. Try using the pen curvature tool, you know, because it's got a lot of uses. It's great really for selecting things. Let's say you've got a car and you want to section and change a door or something. You can. It's really great for those type of things like vehicles and whatever. A little bit harder for natural subjects, but I still use it for some natural subjects because you get nice clean lines with the pen tool. So if you've got like areas of an animal or whatever, you can use those like a leg on a deer or something. Sometimes the curvature pen tool is nice to use for that. It gives you a nice clean cut line. So I do use it quite a lot. And I say, you know, you need all these different tools because every picture is different. You know, areas you need to select are different. So lots of uses for different tools. Okay, I'm going to darken that now. There we go. Okay, so once you're happy, I would right click, flatten the image, and then you could save it. And you've got your new dramatic looking picture. I quite like that. Okay, all the best from me. I hope you learned something in that lesson.